These are live pictures coming to you from Bloemfontein. If you've just joined us, you would have missed, unfortunately, the January 8th statement delivered by ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. A lengthy, in-depth speech about the state of the ANC and indeed the state of the nation. The January 8th statement, probably one of the most important speeches given by the president of the ruling party as they mark the 111th birthday celebrations of the ANC. Our team standing by on the ground, of course, led by senior reporter Siphamandla, Goge, who is standing by just to give us some feedback and reaction to it. And Sipa, last night we spoke about that stump speech that we've heard in numerous occasions from President Cyril Ramaphosa, repeating again the need for renewal and unity in the party. Some more of the same today, but some newsworthy moments in that he has, of course, also touched on the Zondo Commission inquiry and the implementation of its findings, and saying that the ANC is indeed committed to implementing those, and repeating that corruption is counter-revolutionary. Reaction from your side, Siphamandla.
Absolutely. It was indeed a wide-ranging speech or statement. It was to be expected because this is the statement of the National Executive Committee of the ANC delivered by the party president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. It had to cover all the aspects and elements of the ANC and also of a governing party in South Africa. It touched on almost all aspects, including issues of energy, crime, corruption, issues of unemployment, gender-based violence, femicide, unity and renewal. And that's the theme that you will continue to hear for the next 5 years, because the newly elected leadership of the ANC has been given a mandate to focus on unity and renewal. I'm joined by Prof. J.J. Tabane, my colleague. Prof, thank you very much for your time. 9 priority points, including the issue of unity and renewal. What do you make of those priority points, if we can zoom in on some of them?
First of all, I mean, it's the same old menu. Really nothing new that stands out. All that we have seen is an extension of another long shopping list. What I think that stood out for me, obviously, that will interest our viewers, is the issue that they talked about on strengthening governance. Strengthening governance in which way? There's been a lot of complaints that often the ANC deploys people to be ministers, to be DGs, to be many other official positions, but they don't follow them up to hold them accountable. And I think what stood out for me on that particular action is that there's a concrete resolution, or at least a pronouncement, or a marching order that says if you are deployed, you have to report annually about the progress of your mandate. I think that's an interesting thing. And you can imagine that it's more interesting now because we're going towards an election. And there needs to be a lot of reporting back so that the ANC can regain confidence in the people.
The point on crime and corruption, issues of safety, peace and stability within the country, it appears the president was a bit emphatic and rather authoritative addressing the issue of violent crime in South Africa. The country is one of those countries in the world that faces violent crime, and citizens are not safe, including women and children.
Well, the only thing he didn't say is shoot to kill. I think you remember that's what police ministers usually say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking, there's a lot of up-talking about we're going to deal with crime, but it's not reflected, unfortunately, in the crime statistics that were released as recently as 2 months ago. You know, we were told there are 10,000 or thereabouts rapes in 3 months, you know. So, you know, just yesterday on our way here, you know, just outside our office there was a cash in transit where people bombed the whole van. So it's not stopping, and I'm not sure whether or not more threats to the criminals or insulting the criminal is going to work. I think that the president needs to look closely at the security cluster and make some decisive actions there. That will be better than, you know, pronouncements. So yes, he said something strong and he's saying we're going to deal with crime. He doesn't usually do that, and maybe that must be welcome. But what we more welcome is if there's some action in a security cluster that would then make this situation change.
And that action will also require investing resources. As we speak, the budget of the police is being slashed. They are only training 10,000 new recruits a year. They need to train more than 15,000. So without pumping in financial and human resources and change the way you deal with policing in the country, there will be no changes.
One of the things that are a worry is the weakness of our intelligence, right? And understand that that is going to be a big focus, including appointing a minister of intelligence, because then they can coordinate intelligence in the army, intelligence in the police, you know, civilian intelligence. So there's something that happened yesterday where they're going to bomb a van. It should be known way before it happens so that you can actually be ahead of the curve, right? So that would mean that a new leadership, a new frame of mind about how to tackle the security, because it's now a crisis. And you've not had anybody, even the police minister, saying we're in a crisis. They always try to say we're on top of the situation.
Financial sustainability, another point he spoke strongly on. This is an organization that is broke. Yesterday, their Treasurer General Gwen Ramakhupa telling me that they needed 17 million for these celebrations. You've got 2024 general elections coming up. They need each and every cent, and they need to be financially sustainable. Is it doable?
Well, first of all, they probably need to scale down on jamborees. If you can't pay your staff, how do you spend 70 million for a party? You know, like in any situation of individuals, you have to prioritize and say, guys, we are broke, so instead of this celebration, we'll have it virtually, and we'll take that money and pay staff. The second thing is, I thought that the Treasurer General was quite clear that, first of all, they have to cut their staff. Their staff is bloated, and complain that some of the people who were deployed to Lutuli House, maybe after their deployment in government ends, are overpaid. They need to go and find jobs like all of us, you know, and not sit there and hope, you know, that they are just going to be paid for literally doing very little or nothing. The third thing is that the whole issue of the legislation, all ANC treasurers, the last three at least, have always been blaming the fact that there is a law that gives people, if you like, a very low base and a low ceiling, which is about 100,000.
Yes.
The Treasurer General is saying, we're going to amend that law. By the way, they are the ones who passed the law.
Absolutely.
It's a funny thing. They pass the law and then they blame the law. But at least somebody is saying something sensible. Just amend the law. Make the ceiling to be $1 million rand. You know?
Let's talk about the tone of the statement by the president. We cover the January 8th celebrations in Limpopo.
Yes.
What do you make of the tone this time around? He's emerged from the 55th National Conference with a renewed political mandate and authority. It's his second term. He's got nothing to lose. Do you think he was authoritative?
Yeah, he was not as shy as last year. I mean, even last year he still said some strong things. But today he looks a bit more free. And maybe, because we are always a prisoner of hope where the ANC is concerned, maybe he will act differently. Because right now people are not really interested in what he has to say, but what he has to do. Is he going to reshuffle his cabinet and put competent people who can actually make sure these 9 priorities, both inside and outside the ANC, happen? Is he going to effectively use his new team, the top 7, which by all indications are more on his side? So I think he's more buoyant. He sounds to be a little bit more confident that what he's saying, it can happen. Another point which I picked up to be another rhetoric on energy and ESCOM. We're going to deal with load shedding. There is no how part. And also on the issue of energy and ESCOM, when he's delivering this January 8th statement, we're on stage 4 load shedding. The conference of the ANC resolved that something needs to be done about ESCOM and the energy crisis, but the how part is lacking. In fact, the only how we know is that they're going to have a summit. They're going to have an alliance summit. And it's interesting that that part about the energy comes under the section on alliance, not under the section on dealing with the crisis nationally. So he's saying, admitting that they've run out of ideas. I'm sorry. They've run out of ideas. Now they are calling the alliance saying, please come and help us. We'll have a summit on energy so that you can literally tell us what to do, because I think the ANC is running out of ideas. Obviously, we wish them well because this thing affects all of us. But unfortunately, in the speech, there's no detail that says, I'm going to strengthen the board, I'm going to deal with the debt this way. Here's the update on the restructuring of ESCOM.
Sure.
There's literally nothing. And so we have to have another hopeful moment that the Alliance Summit will give us a solution on the energy crisis. It's really bad.
They are celebrating 111 years in Mangaung. The only metro in this province is under administration. You drive around, potholes everywhere, refuse not collected, poverty all over. This is the province they've been governing with an uninterrupted run. Do you think the ANC is capable of self-correcting, but also the prospects of 2024 general elections? If they can't get the basics right, what needs to happen ahead of the 2024 elections?
It's a total mess. I mean, driving around here, getting here, so many potholes, just a dirty city, just bad for a city where the ANC was born, And instead of spending this 17 million on this jamboree, maybe they could have used it to sort out the potholes. But anyway, we shouldn't be too negative. From time to time, even if you are sick, you celebrate your birthday. So, Mangaung has not even gone to conference. So it's talking about the political leadership that must be strengthened. That's also weak, right? So they need to sort out themselves first, and then hope that by giving themselves a proper leadership, they can then fix the city. But this gives us a broader issue that we need to think about. Does the ANC have a strategy about the metros? This is the only metro that are in charge of other than Tabane.
Right? And both of them are crumbling.
Absolutely. Our colleague Lukhona was telling us he was in Tabane. It's a mess. They have to shut down beaches. It's really concerning that there seems not to be an overall strategy that recognizes that the governance of metros is actually a national issue that cannot be left to a province like the Free State, which cannot even get its own house in order. Try and fix the metro.
Prof. J.J. Tabane, thank you very much for your time as we've been unpacking the speech. With that, I have to bring in my colleague, Moloto.
Well, thank you, Siphamandla Goge. We obviously are now at the end of this official program. We are now waiting for the Deputy President of the ANC, Paul Mashatile, to come and brief the members of the media here. But as we're waiting for him, let me bring into this Lukhona Mnguni. Lukhona, let's talk about the optics. When the president came out of the tunnel, he did a walkabout. He was welcomed. Should we read anything into that, given the fact that his mandate as the president of the ANC was only renewed last week?
Well, I mean, he's in a familiar crowd here, isn't it? These are the members of the ANC. They support the president. This is a new leadership that was newly elected in December. And of course, that conference concluded this week in terms of part 2. So I think his hand is much more strengthened. He's much more comfortable. And the membership of the ANC is really looking up to him to provide leadership, because the truth of the matter is that the president is more popular than the ANC brand itself. And that means that I think as we are heading, and people are quite mindful that we are heading towards 2024, there is an election coming up next year. They definitely want to rally around the president, give him the necessary support, create the necessary optics that make it seem that, the president is welcomed, is popular, and is quite
The president made so many promises. A lot of them are really not new. We will strengthen our fight or resolve to fight corruption and crime. Nothing new there. We will create jobs. But I'm more interested in his commitment to make the ANC to become the ANC of the future. They are more concerned about how the ANC will look like in the next 10 years. What do you envisage this ANC to look like in the next decade?
I mean, this has been a big debate about the ANC, whether or not it has managed to transform itself into a modern political party that is not a liberation movement. People have felt that they are too stuck on the liberation movement route. Well, modernizing the ANC also has to do with deepening democracy within the ANC. So you'll remember in 2017, there were massive calls about one member, one vote, making sure that you do away with the branch delegate system. Every member has an opportunity to vote for a leader, because part of the biggest constraints is the manipulation of membership, is the buying of votes because of these delegations that are quite small and they represent the branches. So partly modernizing will be about deepening democracy within the ANC. I think modernizing will also be about a very strict membership criteria. It cannot just be that you pay 20 rands and that's good enough for you to become a member. There should be a screening mechanism that is quite robust, quite aligned to this ANC of the future. As they talk about this Vision 2032, we will wait and see how they unpack it.
When he talks about renewal not being optional, whether you like it or not, renewal will happen. What do you think he's talking about here?
Well, I think it's being firm on discipline, being firm on, the constitution of the ANC, doing away with people who undermine the integrity of the organization, because there are really members in the ANC who wake up to perpetuate anarchy within the organization. There are people who utilize the ANC as a vehicle to self-enrichment. Those are the things that, if you are serious about renewal, you would need to placate out of the existence of the ANC. But of course, this was the rallying call, unity and renewal in 2017. Some people are now saying, yes, the president has a safer majority, has an NEC that can support him. Now he can implement renewal. But what was he waiting for in the past 5 years? Again, I think what is going to be fundamental is to see a set of actions coming into play to support this renewal.
Yeah. He's saying that the people of this country love the ANC, and he says come 2024, they are going to show their love for the ANC, and the opposition parties will see that people love the ANC. Is he wrong, though?
Well, I mean, he has to have confidence in his own organization and in his own campaign. But the evidence is there for all of us to see. The ANC's electoral support has declined over the last few years. This is one of 3 metros that the ANC is in power. In 5 of the metros, there are coalition governments. Even here, in fact, the ANC needed to rely on smaller organizations to govern quite comfortably. They're in a coalition government in the city of eThekwini. It's only Buffalo City Municipality in East London where they really enjoy a sound majority. So the evidence, South Africans are beginning to, march away from the ANC through their votes. Of course, the ANC still remains fundamentally a popular organization, but it's going to be under severe threat in this province, in the Free State next year. It's going to be under threat in KwaZulu-Natal, where the IFP is making a resurgence into, wanting to probably govern that province with a coalition. So we are going to see a number of things. They know, the polling has been telling us, their polling has been telling them that the ANC is a party in decline. But you must put up a brave face when you have a crowd of over 10,000 people looking up to your leadership, looking up to hear from you. You want to send them home, enthusiastic and galvanized to go and, ramp up support for the ANC in society. But I think that it's far more complex than he puts it.
Lukhona, I am more interested in municipalities because that is where service delivery happens or is supposed to happen. And I heard him correctly when he was putting more emphasis on how they are going to be more active on ensuring that municipalities function. But can the people of this country believe him in that regard, because these municipalities did not collapse last week or last year?
Well, local government has been in serious crisis for a long time. You just have to read the Auditor General reports on municipalities to understand the severity of the crisis. That's the first thing. The second one, the president was quite correct. Our roads are littered with potholes, so he spoke a lot about, bulk infrastructure development, the maintenance of infrastructure that has already been developed. Of course, still talking about the district development model as a planning mechanism and a budgeting mechanism. But if we were to look to the pilot sites of the district development model. How are those district municipalities doing? Waterberg in Limpopo, Artambo in the Eastern Cape, eThekwini in KZN. I don't seem to be seeing these municipalities turning around by virtue of having this pilot project. But we really have to focus on municipalities. That is the site of service delivery. That is the pain point of South Africans, whether it's about shortages of water, bad roads that we drive on, unreliable infrastructure for electricity in some of the cities. And the president is correct. In an environment where your municipalities are not working, investment is going to pull out. We saw this in Jitsobotla, in Lichtenburg, where Clover had to shut down and move to KZN because there was no reliable road, there was no reliable supply of water. You can't run businesses in that environment. With the added challenge of the national load shedding, the power blackouts that we are experiencing. Indeed, the president was correct to say South Africans are living through very difficult times, and we are, because we feel the cost of living, we feel the ruin of the infrastructure, we feel the inefficiency of these local municipalities. He tried to touch on the question of deployment, deploying people who are not fit for purpose, and I think one of the things that needs to happen is to focus on that. What is the talent pool that municipalities have in terms of personnel?